Do you feel like you have a good grasp on how The Batman was filmed, or why it's the most cinematically creative film of 2022? So many movies come and go, and most of the audience, myself included, tend to focus on similar things, like who are the stars in the movie and how did they do, how was their performance? Also, who are the directors and what other movies have they done that I can compare it to? Those are all valid thoughts and questions to have about movies, but I believe if you look deeper into the productions of these films, there's going to be aspects of the production that interest the crap out of you. This could be set dressing or sound design, maybe costumes or visual effects, maybe even the editing, how it was edited together. There's a lot of aspects to production that people tend to overlook unless you're already a seasoned film geek. For The Batman, my interest was piqued at the elaborate process this film went for its cinematography. I'm going to walk you through the technicals and the process they went through to get this film's look. Then I will take a look at shots from the film to break down techniques for the in-camera composition and lighting. This film has won many awards for its cinematography, and the man to thank for that is Greg Fraser, the director of photography. The film was shot digitally on the ARRI Alexa LF. The lenses were custom-tuned ARRI anamorphic lenses to capture a specific fall-off look. I'll be pointing out an example of this specific look later in the video. The LED wall volume technology was used on a handful of scenes for this movie, from the city landscapes to even the night car chase between Batman and the Penguin. Greg Fraser, the director of photography, is not new to this technology. He worked with it on Mandalorian Season 1, and he's been kind of the main director of photography that is innovating in the LED volume space. But to me, the coolest part of this process for the cinematography was, first, it was shot digitally, but then it was converted onto film negatives to get the classic film look. Let's break it down and look at this together. They recorded the whole film on the ARRI Alexa LF, and they went ahead and edited and color graded the entire film. So they have a straight out of the camera, very crisp, clean version of the entire film. They then took this digital version of the film and captured it onto film negatives. Once a negative, they processed the film and then recaptured it back digitally to add it back into the edit. Matt Reeves and Greg Fraser kind of took a lot of inspiration from films like Seven and the lighting that was in The Godfather in the 70s. But in order to capture that more classic film look, they did not want to do it artificially. They did not want to do it on the computer and kind of make it look like film. They wanted it to be actual film.
By doing this special system of putting the digital onto negative, we allow the photochemical to do the skip bleaching, but then we can restore all this stuff back digitally afterwards. We bring it all back in. Our color science does his crazy propeller head stuff to actually make it usable image for me that works in exactly the same way of how I've been working. It's just gone through this wonderful photochemical random process. When you look at it, especially with IP, the colors change a lot within a shot. When we look at the digital version of this, it's pure. It is pristine. It is graded within an inch of its life. However, when it's gone through this process, and especially on IP, you look at one shot as like red, pink, green, something, all within one shot. Like it's just changing color because of just...
That's chemicals.
It's chemicals, it's the emulsion, it's everything. And that was part of the beauty of what we love with this process. Like I said to Matt early on, is like, it's going to be close, but it's not going to be exactly
we didn't know what it was going to look like.
No,
right? Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And so I said, as long as we're all like open to the fact of it's going to do its thing, I mean, it is very close. I mean, it's not like it's a different
It wasn't
movie.
radical, but it's still
but it's
doing
but
stuff.
it does stuff, and that's why we chose to do it. Otherwise, we could have just emulated it.
Sure.
But it's that
Because the organic.
It's the organic. It's just doing things that we wouldn't have thought about.
This is extremely interesting. I know productions have done this before, and I believe Greg Fraser did it a little bit on Dune Part 1, but I don't know that an entire film has been done this way, converting the digital footage to negatives and then processing that film and then putting it back into the edit so you get that specific look you're going for. I don't think it's ever been done on this scale before. I think there's something beautiful and a little hipster about it. It's almost unpredictable. I think it's super cool, and I'd love to see this done more in future films. So with all that said, let's go ahead and look at 4 examples, 4 shots from the film that helps illustrate the process and the style choices that Greg Fraser made in this movie. So one thing that makes this film extremely unique is motivated lighting, and Greg Fraser uses this nonstop. Almost every scene and almost every shot shows you exactly where the light source is, and man, is it minimal. A lot of people complained about how dark this film was, but if you watched it in theaters, it's plenty bright for you to see what's going on, and it's just a stylistic choice. And what better franchise to use a dark, stylized image than a Batman story? So, like, obviously, this is one simple example, but he uses lamps nonstop, or, silhouette skies, or little flashing lights like in the club when he goes to meet the Penguin. And it all has unique colors, but it's consistent through the film. So like right here on Batman's face, you see his primary illumination is coming from this lamp, so that it's lighting up where we kind of see his eye here, where the focus of the frame really comes, is that eye. And it's contrasted nicely with kind of this little soft, kind of colder light that kind of hits the other side of him to reveal the shape of Batman here. Another style choice that Fraser and Reeves went with is they dirtied up the image. There's a lot of close-ups, there's a lot of wide shots, but man, is this film not just dirty from the film processing that I've already mentioned to make it look like film, to give everything kind of a softer, more vintage look, but actually the framing itself. And this is a good example of it, because if you take a look here at Gordon, this is the focus of the frame, and it's one little section that we're looking at. But look at all of this mess that's on here. I mean, you get this cracked window on both sides that literally is framing him up, and then you have all of this extra foreground and just textures behind him that are a little bit in the dark, and it's just all messy. And this whole film is extremely dirty, and they did that intentionally because I believe they wanted to make this film feel chaotic and in some ways dangerous, and also kind of from the perspective of different characters. And so instead of just choosing to put a camera inside the car with Gordon to get a nice clean image of him reacting to bullets being shot at him from outside his car, they instead shoot through the windshield and show all of the bullets in the foreground, and you'll see this constantly through the whole film. The imagery is very dirtied up, and it's the choice they went with, and I think it's fun. I like it. It's a nice refresher compared to other superhero movies that are just crisp and clean. This makes it feel like a different vibe. This is an example of the kind of lens fall off look that I was mentioning earlier, where they had custom RE lenses for this film. It's another version of dirtying up your image. They wanted to like bring attention to specific places in the frame. So like here towards the beginning of the film, you have this group of kind of street muggers and initiating this younger guy who has half paint right here, and Batman comes in and approaches them. But the real focus for this specific shot was kind of this lead guy here in the center. And if you notice, especially this guy over here, his face kind of has like this jagged fuzziness to it. It's not just out of focus. It's almost as if there seems to be a blur across his face. And you kind of see that from the far edges of the frame as well. And they did all of this in camera. This is like this choice that they wanted to make baked in look for these images. But it's so off the beaten path from what traditional cinema is. They went ahead and took a chance, and I think it's a good chance. I think it makes the world feel more chaotic and more almost like really like trying to make you focus in on what you're looking at. I like it. It's again, it adds another layer of creativity to the film. And the final aspect to this cinematography is branding, and that's kind of, you do that with colors especially. I mean, what are the main colors when you think of the Batman? For everyone who watched it, you think orange first, you think red, then you think kind of this teal or blue color. And then you get kind of like this very desaturated, kind of sickly green color whenever Batman is not in Batman, when he's Bruce Wayne, when he's walking around the streets. It's not a lot of color to the images. And so they branded it color-wise. It's very dark. There's lots of shadows. They are only illuminating the important things. Everything else is obscure. Everything else is faded away in the background or texture. And really all you're looking at is what's important. And they really brand it well with color difference, with a consistent colors across the film. Like here we have the nice orange golden light contrasted right behind this very blue color that's illuminating Catwoman. And so we see this across the film, and this is a good way to capture depth as well. It's very simple to make your background and foreground a different color temperature. And man, Greg did this so often in the film. And he also, I believe, is taking some of inspiration from previously mentioned The Godfather and using colors to motivate certain parts of the story, not just to identify locations, but to actually say, what is this color representing? That can kind of be left up for interpretation. With all the news that came out about the Batman from last year, I honestly am a little disappointed I didn't learn about some of this process sooner. There's YouTube videos out there. There was stuff available, but it wasn't heavily marketed to me. And I'm disappointed that I'm just now diving into this interesting production process, and I hope it interests you as well. If you're interested in more content like this, I'm actually going to do a Patreon exclusive. It's free, but it is exclusively on Patreon. The link's in the description. A video of me looking at more shots from the Batman and analyzing them and seeing creative choices cinematography-wise that they made. So if you want to watch it, it's free. Just go to the link in the description and it'll take you to that Patreon video where you can enjoy a little bit of an extended version of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video, I'd really appreciate it. And you can see more videos like this in the future. I also want to hear what you think about this content. If this film was interesting to you, what stood out about it, the Batman, and maybe in this video, what was interesting that you learned or something that I didn't bring up. I'd love to continue learning about it if you have information I did not mention in this video. So let's interact in the comments. I appreciate it. And I'll see you over on Patreon for the free exclusive video. Did you know they used the volume for that car scene? They literally, the shots where he flies out of the fire and comes up and rear ends him, they have a car on a lift that's just moving around with a camera and the volume's behind the car. So the car's not moving. So when he's like, I got you, and he's like looking in the rear view mirror, the car that comes up on his ass, that's on the volume, and it's projected on the volume. It's coming up on his ass on the volume screen, and he's in a car that's like up in the air.
Nice.
It's really freaking cool.